like you mentioned, you've added on tungsten in Canada, which is a fantastic resource that you just announced. You have your Alaska claims, you have Montana, you have your JV with America Gold and Silver.
In the oil and gas area, I always diversified. I had onshore wells, offshore wells. I had Permian Basin, Appalachian Basin, Utica Shale, Williston Basin. So no different here in the critical mineral space. Antimony is great. We have in essence a monopoly, but we wanted to be diversified in other areas in any way we can help the government. And we know the government will financially support us if we help them get these critical minerals. They need tungsten for tanks and for submarines, and cobalt for all kinds of other things. So we think we've got the formula down. What makes us different than other mining companies is that when we take over a property, it's not to be mining it in 2, 3, 5, 15 years. We got to be mining it within a year. So I think you should look at this company as a very entrepreneurial company that does not follow the pack. I hope my management team thinks I'm the hardest working guy in the company because I am pushing and pushing and pushing because I see these tremendous opportunities that can really benefit our shareholders. Our stock didn't go from 20 cents a share to $9 for nothing. You'll see additional contracts, you'll see additional acquisitions, you'll see other critical minerals, and you'll see additional smelting.
For disclosure purposes, our site does not make recommendations for purchases or sale of stocks, services, or products. Nothing on our site or this podcast should be construed as an offer or solicitation to buy or sell products or securities. All investing involves risk and possible losses. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only. Gary, it's great to have you on the show. I'd love to start off with your background before you started at United States Antimony, because you've done quite a diverse background and it kind of all feels like it's the perfect pieces of a puzzle for you to be the CEO of the company, as how you started with it.
Well, I live in Dallas. I went to first year of college was in California at Cal State Fullerton. Then I went here at SMU in Dallas. I've been a banker for about 9 years in my early career. Ran the energy division of a large bank out of Canada. And then at age 27, decided to go out on my own. I did a leveraged buyout of a well service company back in 1985. And that was my first real public company. I took that company public in 1990 on the Boston Stock Exchange at 18 cents a share, and sold that company 15 years later for 2.2 billion. And so that was kind of my first entree. We went from the Boston to the American to the New York Stock Exchange. I've had two other companies, both oil and gas and service related into the oil and gas industry on the New York Stock Exchange. I was Magnum Hunter 1, I had Magnum Hunter 2, and I had Green Hunter. And then I was chairman and CEO of a biopharmaceutical company called Novavax, just for a temporary period. I primarily served as an independent board member, was lead director for a while. And that company went from $3 to $312 a share during COVID. And I'd left the board back then and after COVID, and got involved in this company about 3 years ago. So I would say banking was my primary financial background. Then I specialized in energy lending, then working for my own oil and gas companies and both in E&P and in service, and then had a stint with the pharmaceutical side, came back to the energy industry, but through hard rock mining. So this company, I've been involved in it 3 years, came on just as a independent director and became CEO within about 6 months. So it's been a fun ride. It's very similar actually to oil and gas. We have to deal with leases, we have to deal with minerals, and so a lot of it is similar. But I do have two really good board members that are kind of mentors. They're up in their 70s and 80s that have been around the industry their whole career. So I've learned a lot, and it's like running any business. It's the same thing. You're just using different kind of products.
Well, I love that you started off with understanding the volatility in the energy markets for oil and gas, because antimony and a lot of the critical minerals have seen a very interesting and volatile start. Can you walk us through? I feel like our audience probably knows enough about the antimony space, but maybe not the full story of how many milestones you've achieved since starting with United States Antimony? Because you were kind of thrown into from like huge contracts right away to China changing. So you've had to deal with a lot.
When I first got involved and decided to take over the reins of the company, it was really, I call it, I kind of consider myself a fix-it man. So I was fixing things. The company is old. It's been around 50 years, and a lot of its equipment is old. And so I brought on a mechanical engineer that helped me in various projects that we had. We have a plant up in Idaho. We have one in Thompson Falls. We have one in Mexico, and really upgrading those plants. Well, during that fixing up period is when China cut off all antimony shipments to all countries in the world, including the U.S. And of course, the price of that metal went from less than $5 a pound to over $30 a pound. So with that became, lots of opportunity because we were the only two antimony smelters in North America. We had one in Montana and one down in Mexico. And being the only supplier of antimony put us in a very unique position. We obviously got a lot of attention from the federal government because antimony is such a necessary ingredient in military applications. So with the fact that we had already qualified about 5 years prior to make what's called military grade material, we won a very large contract from the Department of War, $245 million contract that's just recently been increased to 248. And we are now supplying antimony ingots for our defense. They basically are held in inventory for disbursement to a lot of the suppliers of military equipment to the government. So right place, right time with a company that was a little sleeper. When I took over, the stock was 20 cents a share. We're trading around $9 today. Market cap when I took over was $20 million. Today we're like 1.3 billion. So it's been a great trajectory. I think my finance background has been helpful. We've raised some capital on the way up. We're sitting flush with about 90 million of cash and cash equivalents, and we've expanded our facility. We won a $27 million grant from the Department of War to allow us to fund our growth expectations to meet the government contract needs. We've opened up a mine in Montana. We've leased 30,000 acres in Alaska. We now have a tungsten play in Canada. We have a cobalt play in Canada. So we try to grow the existing business, expand the business substantially, start mining ourselves, and then diversify into other critical minerals. So the last 3 years have been a pretty busy time.
For investors that, they see a lot of these critical minerals as a one-off compared to the precious metals, what is your perspective about the long term as far as tungsten or cobalt or antimony? Because they do seem volatile, but I don't think they're going anywhere either. So how would you give your perspective for investors that are still kind of on the fence about those?
You got to understand that the United States and Canada, we have substantial critical metal and rare earth resources in the ground. Things that prohibited us from continuing to develop those resources are number one, the EPA. There was a lot of pushback for mining regarding the Environmental Protection Agency. Also, other restrictions, whether it be in the BLM, Bureau of Land Management, the Forest Service. There was all kinds of handcuffs put on the mining sector. You combine that with China going around the world and controlling most of these critical minerals and rare earths with their 100-year plan. And what they would do is they would control the mineral and then they would drive the price down to drive everybody out of the business. And they did that very successfully. That's why we're the only antimony smelters in North America that are active. There were used to be lots of them. So I think that this administration recognizes, and I even think the Biden administration recognized that we have to bring critical minerals back to our homeland to be secure. And so there's no tungsten today being mined in North America. There's tungsten deposits. We have a great one up in Canada. So I think that we're seeing in the volatile world, the unstable world we live in today, that we have got to control these minerals ourselves. We can't let some third world country that does not have our best interest in mind control them. And so we've seen already the leverage that China has, the leverage that Russia has over these things. So becoming critical mineral independent, just like we did in the oil and gas business. I mean, today the United States is completely independent from the rest of the world on oil and gas. We are an exporter, not an importer. The same thing can happen with critical minerals.
As far as what we're seeing right now, we don't have a crystal ball of what's going to happen and with the war and all the volatility in the world. But obviously, we've seen a supply chain disruption again, which means we can guess and assume that there will be costs increasing, especially for mining and anything in energies, as that usually does. You've done a lot as far as like your JV with America's Gold and Silver, and then you have that technology, the Hydromet for the antimony flakes. Do you think like some of those things are going to be able to help offset if we see the price of energy and et cetera for mining go up?
No question that the gamble we took last year in 2025 by funding a embryonic hydromet group over in Bolivia is going to pay off in spades for our shareholders. And what I mean by that, I just was in Bolivia for the past 7 days. I got back on Friday, and we took our management team, America's Gold and Silver management team, all the way to the CEO. He went with me. We had consultants, and we had a crew of about 12 people. And we spent a lot of time understanding the technology and how this new process worked. The process has been around. It just hasn't been done in the manner that we're doing it. And so it's a game changer for this industry because it allows us to take what I would call subpar antimony that doesn't meet the requirements to go into our smelters. We can use in this hydromet facility, take a much lower quality antimony, and we can make military grade material out of that. So it comes out of hydromet at 90% pure antimony and then goes to our smelters, and we can quickly make antimony metal ingots. So we're excited that we took this gamble. We got this pilot project in Bolivia up to a commercial scale. Now we're going to duplicate that project in a much larger facility in Idaho with America's Gold and Silver. They will be a 51% partner. We're 49, but we manage the joint venture. And no doubt there'll be a many companies they already are knocking on our door saying, hey, can we bring our antimony to you? And so we're bringing something that nobody else has to the United States, and it can be used not only for antimony, that's our phase one, but we can do silver, copper, and other critical minerals. So it's a process that we're patenting certain claims on to make sure we have some protection from our IP, and we're excited about it. I think that we'll have that facility hopefully up and running by the end of 27, so a year and a half from now, and it'll be one of its kind, and we applied for the federal government for funding.
As far as for the antimony market, I feel like you probably have some of the best answers. Where do you find the best source now since China has cut everyone off? I mean, how difficult is it to get a supply at this current scenario?
Well, we've been picking up antimony cargo loads, deposits from 6 different countries: Peru, Chile, Australia, Mexico, Bolivia, Chad. And we did that throughout 2025. And we really learned through that antimony procurement period that, not all antimony is the same. And so we got some bad material from Australia. When I say bad, it had arsenic and had lead in it. And that's very difficult for us to deal with in our smelter. So we have to run different processes, run it many more times, add soda ash, do other things to clean that up. This year, we have homed in on the 2 countries that we are seeing the highest quality antimony, Bolivia and Chad. And so those 2 countries are stepped up their imports to us or exports to us, and that's where we're focusing. So I would call 2025 as a year of R&D. We're trying to figure out, okay, where's the best place to get our antimony? We found it, and we're getting it in spades from those 2 countries. So our real goal, though, is to be mining it ourselves. So we opened up our mine up in Montana last year. Within a couple weeks, we're already moving antimony down the mountain. We moved, I think, 800 tons of antimony down. That's at our Radersburg processing plant. Now it's 10% stignite, which means that to get into our smelters, it has to be 60 to 70% concentrate. So at Radersburg, it gets concentrated and then gets moved into our smelters in Thompson Falls and makes military grade ingots. So um, Alaska, we lost most of last summer because the permitting took too long from the DNR. That's all been successfully done, and we're going to hit the ground running. Hopefully, in the next 30 days. There's still about 2 feet of snow on the ground. We're waiting for the melt, and then we have crews ready to hit the ground running there. So, the real goal is to be supplying at least 50, 75% of the antimony we need from our own sources because it's cheaper and we more reliable. We know what it is. And so that's where I think our shareholders will really profit is when we start mining more of this antimony ourselves right here in the United States.
Can you talk to us about the long term or the bigger vision of United States Antimony? Because obviously, with your background, you've built companies and you have a long term vision and you see the bigger picture. And you, like you mentioned, you've added on tungsten in Canada, which is a fantastic resource that you just announced. You have your Alaska claims, you have Montana, you have your JV with America Gold and Silver. Like, are you looking to be like the critical mineral powerhouse in the United States?
I hope so. That would be great. You know, we were led to tungsten and cobalt by the government. They're the ones that told us we really need these materials. So our mining engineers and geologists started looking, and we found a really nice tungsten play up in Canada in Sudbury area of Ontario. And in fact, we announced a resource report that we got prepared that got filed with SEC about a week ago, and it shows $4.6 billion of future revenue. So we're anxious to get that going. In the oil and gas area, I always diversified. I had onshore wells, offshore wells. I had Permian Basin, Appalachian Basin, Utica Shale, Williston Basin. So no different here in the critical mineral space. Antimony is great. We have in essence a monopoly, but we wanted to be diversified in other areas in any way we can help the government. And we know the government will financially support us if we help them get these critical minerals. They need tungsten for tanks and for submarines, and cobalt for all kinds of other things. So neither of those critical minerals are being mined today in either United States or Canada, and we want to change that. So answer your question is we think we've got the formula down. What makes us different than other mining companies is that when we take over a property, it's not to be mining it in 2, 3, 5, 15 years. We got to be mining it within a year. So we're on a very fast track. We look at all kinds of deals every single week, and 95% of them are turned down because they're too far out, they too much risk, they haven't explored enough. They're 3 to 5 years away. There's no way to process the material. And there's lots of antimony wannabes out there that want contracts from us. Well, why am I going to give you a contract that you're still 4 years away or 5 years away? So that's what I think really is the mindset different from our company versus other typical mining companies is that we're on a fast track.
Can you talk a little bit about the team that you've put together at United States Antimony? Because I even noticed for your press release about the tungsten, like your geologists are based out of Sudbury. They like you pick all the right people that know what they're supposed to be doing, as opposed to you see other teams that, they figure it out the longer way. But I love the team you've put together.
People is what makes any business. And I have relied a lot upon my board and my what I call my mentors who help me and who these guys have been around the business 40 and 50 years. They know everybody. And we have hired some very good talent. There's more talent I need, I'm looking for. And I will tell you this too, though, and you'll be the first to hear this. We've made a really hard decision to get involved heavily in AI technology. And we have a firm that we're working with now that's working on two of our projects using AI. And we want to be a front runner. And why does AI make sense for us? Because, as I said earlier, we're on a fast track. So if I got all this geological data of a potential mine, whether it be geophysics or geology or logs or gravity surveys or satellite surveys, or all this material can be put into AI, and rather than take a year or 2 years of a geologist, a geophysicist trying to figure all this out, AI can figure it out in minutes. Now it's that material is only as good as your ability to analyze it. So the material goes into AI, comes back to us, we analyze again, and we can home in and should have a much better success rate than have in the past. And so I think that's another thing that's maybe going to make us different is we're way ahead of the curve, a lot of our competition in that regard.
Do you want to talk a bit about the financials again from where you started 3 years ago? The vast difference. And do you like attribute some of that to obviously your banking history and background? I'm imagining you're a pretty good negotiator for the company.
Well, the thing that, I will tell you, I have made mistakes in the past by having too much leverage on balance sheets in a commodity driven business where you have fluctuation. So I'll never make that mistake again. So if you look at our balance sheet today, it's pristine. I think we have $200,000 of debt on a truck at 3% interest rate, and the rest is cash. So cash and marketable securities and bonds. Staying liquid is very, very important to me and our board, and gives us opportunity too. Having cash and cash equivalents gives us, a lot of power. Um, we have a $400 million ATM, which stands for at the market issuance. I haven't used that in quite a while, but that's out there and available to us. We have a universal shelf registration statement where we could raise 500 million tomorrow. So we, we want to have all the tools in our tool shed that give us the flexibility if we see something we want to buy. As you may know, we own 10% of a company in Australia called Larvata. We bought that in the open market last year. It's about a $37 million investment. And we made a tender offer for that company. They rejected it. And we're still, trying to decide what we do there. That is a gold and antimony mine called Hillgrove in Australia. And we would love to be able to put a hydromet process down there and process that antimony. So that we'll see, over the next 60, 90 days where that may or may not go. But that's the kind of opportunities we like, where we see what we deem may be an undervalued asset, what we deem is an area that we can add expertise and add, the ability to bring something to fruition faster. So this project we bought in Canada, we paid $5 million for it last year, and we got a future net revenue of 4.6 billion. So now it's going to take money to get that out of the ground, but let's say it costs 100 million, it's still a heck of a return. So those are the kind of projects we like to find, if you will, diamonds in the rough. And so we have got some more. I'm actually leaving out of town tomorrow to work on a project we have in the Southeast US. And we have another project up in Canada we're looking at that we're very excited about. So we're constantly trying to build that portfolio, but do it in a very, very smart way. So back to your comment about the financials. When I took over the company, I think the annual revenues that first year were maybe $8 million. The following year, 2023, was 15. Last year, our revenues were just a hair under 40 million, 39 million. This year, we've given projections of 125, and I think no doubt next year will be 200 plus. So that's a pretty fast growth. Now, everybody wants to see cash flow and EBITDA. We've had positive cash flow and EBITDA. We had negative earnings because of really non-cash charges related to stock compensation. All of us took stock rather than salary, early on in the game, and when the stock appreciates, you have to expense that. So um, we will have earnings in 2026. That's due to a combination of our increase in EBITDA as well as the government grants, which drops down to bottom line income. So I think having a little embryonic company 3 years ago with a 20 million market cap to we ought to have 1.5 billion here pretty soon and be profitable is a pretty big turnaround for a sector that historically has been a bit out of favor.
It's a fantastic turnaround, especially considering no one knew what antimony was probably 4 or 5 years ago. So
I
it's
didn't know what it
very well
was
done.
3 years ago when I came on the board. I go, "What the heck is antimony?" So, yeah, we're doing a real education to a lot of people.
One of the things that I've paid attention to that every time I've seen you for a podcast or an interview is you seem to have a very good way with timing. You know when to stay and you know when to leave for companies. Is that like, do you attribute that to Texas water? Or like, is that a skill you learned throughout your business career? Or like for people that are entrepreneurs or investors, that's
Well,
such a
you
rare
must have
skill to
seen
have.
my you must have seen my crystal ball sitting over here. No, I as you get older, obviously you get a little wiser. You know, the one thing I know for sure when everything's are going great, there's a grizzly bear coming. So don't, believe you're smarter than everybody else. So the beauty of the sector we're in is that I see solid growth really in all parts of critical minerals and rare earths for the next 5 years. I mean, we aren't even at the first inning. And so we've, got a lot of limelight because we have a critical mineral that's so badly needed by the military. We won these contracts, but I can see this sector when we go out and talk to institutional investors, they're trying to learn because the sector has been so much out of favor for so long that they don't have research analysts or credit analysts at these big firms that can analyze this sector. So they're trying to learn it. And so we've gone from, virtually zero institutional ownership. I think we have 220 institutions that own us today. And we did that in the last year and a half. And that's how did we do it? We talked to a ton of people. And, I talked to a big institution this morning that's a shareholder that continues to buy our stock. So we've gone from a pure retail stock to, I would say we're 40% institutional, 60% retail. We don't want to lose the retail investor at all, but we also believe that having diversification of longer term, big, deep pockets is very important in our sector.
Gary, you have been fantastic. I don't want to keep you all day. What are the key takeaways that you want investors to remember for the conversation?
I think you should look at this company as a very entrepreneurial company that does not follow the pack. There's nothing we do that follows the pack, whether it be the way we mine, whether it be the way we do our business, whether we find our deals. We're not a typical company. So what we've tried to do is bring this entrepreneurial spirit to a sleepy industry and move it in warp speed. We know we have to move fast. Our government needs it. Our industrial customers need it. And we're at the right place at the right time. So, these windows don't stay open forever. And so, I hope my management team thinks I'm the hardest working guy in the company because I am pushing and pushing and pushing because I see these tremendous opportunities that can really benefit our shareholders. Our stock didn't go from 20 cents a share to $9 for nothing. It's because we can continue to perform, and you'll see additional contracts, you'll see additional acquisitions, you'll see other critical minerals, and you'll see additional smelting. So, look at what we already have sitting in our portfolio that's coming in the next year or two. So that's exciting, and I'm having a good time, and I think our management team is, and we work hard, and they know I'm going to get on them if we screw up. And so we're going to make mistakes. Every company does, but the key is if you make them, fix them quickly and get on. And that's the way we run our business.